I will call to order this meeting of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability. This is our January regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. We are at 6:03 p.m. Will the secretary please call roll?
Christina, Matt, Austin,
Here.
Caitlin, here, Matt Flaherty,
Here.
thank you, Anya, David,
Here.
Sean, here, Majla,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Nolan,
Here.
Alicia,
Got a couple people in the waiting room up there.
Thank you. Yes.
Emma, present, and John.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. We do have a quorum. And I will just quick check with you, Lauren. Did you admit?
There was one person waiting.
Okay.
Oh, Jessica Davis.
Is Alicia Hardy still officially a member of the commission?
Yes.
For this one.
Should I call Jessica?
Yeah, actually, if you would, I suggest.
Jessica?
Oh, that's right, because they all end in the end of January.
Yeah. I'm just calling you for roll.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. So we definitely have quorum and good attendance. Thank you all for making it. We can go ahead and jump on to the third item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. So this was distributed by email about 5 minutes ago, but was also on the shared drive since this past Friday, the 6th. So is there any objection to adopting the agenda as distributed and shown in the current screen share? I will just note that I did add one item in the report from chair that I hope nobody objects to. It was just a summary of the executive committee meeting that I had missed from the original.
I on the 6th, just so that it's clear it was meeting public notice.
Oh, you did distribute?
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize then. Okay, so it's distributed on the 6th. So seeing no objection, the agenda is adopted. I will end the screen share so we can have the Zoom screen. And we can go on to approval of the meeting minutes. These will be for the December 13th regular meeting, which are also available on the shared drive. Are there any corrections to the minutes as drafted? All right, seeing none, then those are approved. And we can go on to public comment. So each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. I see there are no members in the room. If there is anyone on Zoom who would like to speak for public comment, just please indicate your desire to do so by using the raise hand function, or alternatively typing into the chat if needed. And we will just call on anyone in the order that they request. So I see no takers in Zoom and no one in the room. So we can move right on to report from the acting chair. So this will be a little bit lengthy, just to forewarn you. But has good content. So I'm going to start with the summary of our executive committee meeting that we held just this last week. So we discussed, I guess, primarily a few ideas for ways in which we could help, strengthen and improve the operations and capacity of the commission. So just kind of a quick summary, we talked about having potential regular social events, maybe on a monthly basis. Better connection with the appointing bodies who appoint members to seats on the commission to help try to have input if there are interested members that we are aware of who would be good fits for the commission so that it can be more of a involved process. We talked about putting together some member onboarding content to help smooth the transition and integration into the commission, because I know there's not necessarily been a lot of clarity surrounding that process in the past. And then also talk about maybe some amendments to the bylaws with potential addition of member expectations, and just maybe refining it and seeing if there's anything procedural that can be improved in the same way that we had done before with the annual meeting. So just wanted to mention those things. We can take them up in new business if anybody wants to talk about those. Anyone is welcome to connect with any of the officers either after the meeting or by email. And we'd be glad to have input on those things and kind of just help build capacity and our ability to do good work. Also, I wanted to touch on the 2023 commissioner appointments because I know there are a lot of terms that expire on this particular meeting. I know for sure that, or I guess, Najla, you had mentioned that Alicia is not serving a subsequent term. I don't know about, gosh, I think any of the other members I haven't heard anything back on. I was going to check in with Lauren, who stepped out, but maybe ask if now is a good opportunity. The commissioner appointments for this, or I guess terms that expire this month, have you gotten confirmation from any other members apart from Alicia, who is not going to be serving another term? I think there was also
There were a couple people we were talking about that haven't been attending regularly, so
Okay.
because they're also not present at this meeting, I'm gonna give them notice that they've missed too many meetings at this point, so I would expect that we probably have 2 more vacancies, but the appointment letters for the mayoral appointments should have already gone out or in the process of going out. And those are via mail, and then as that happens, the commissioner page is updated. So there might be a little bit of a delay with council scheduling for some of the council appointments, but it's in the process, so.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So I did want to note that I am also one of the members whose term is expiring, and I will not be serving a subsequent term. So this will be my last meeting as a member and chair, but
Just drop that bomb on us. Jeez.
so I'm following it up with a but to make it clear that I don't intend to just completely stop being involved with the commission. I was involved even prior to being appointed to it. So I am very interested in making sure that there's a good handoff to the next chair or co-chair, depending on how the arrangement is determined. All of the things that I just listed that we discussed in the executive meeting, I do still plan to be involved with. If there are social events, I do still plan to stop in and visit. And I'm generally interested in keeping support of the commission just without the same commitments that I know I won't be able to maintain in the near future, just given, I guess, workloads and potential changes in opportunities. So don't intend to step away completely, but won't be necessarily sitting in the same seat either. So I wanted to make you aware of that, and that I will still be accessible and still providing input. You'll probably hear public comment from me from time to time. So wanted to make everyone aware of that.
You know, you're probably gonna get bugged more when you step up than you did now.
We'll see how that goes. So,
Did I mention boo is?
yes, well received, thank you. Booing and hissing, right. So the follow-up item in the report is the co-chair transition. So one thing I noticed that is not present in our bylaws currently is any sort of process for filling vacant officer positions. We only have elections that are specified during the annual meeting, which is at least now in March. So there would only be a maximum of a 1 month gap if we didn't have an election at this meeting. Before, there would just be normal elections. So one, I guess, I'll express it as a thought and a question, is the potential of doing an election at this meeting or next meeting in advance of the annual meeting for an interim position, or I guess alternatively that could just lapse for the time being and then potentially be incorporated into bylaws in the future as to how we would like to address what I assume will be a recurring situation where there will be commissioners whose terms end prior to the annual meeting. So I imagine there will potentially routinely be officer gaps in the future. So I don't know if there's any. Yeah, please.
How were officer gaps handled in the past?
That is a fabulous question. I know, at least with the last chair's departure, there was just no replacement provided, and it was just the chair and vice chair structure that created a gap that the vice chair filled, but then what was left open until the next elections took place. So I think that's not necessarily a great way to process it, especially depending on where in the year it falls. And I don't know if there's anything that would prohibit an election from being held just by our choosing in the absence of a definition in the bylaws, but just wanted to be deliberate about how that's addressed. So that could be something that we pick up in new business as well.
Well, I think one of the reasons that the election was moved from July to March was to address this, and there will also be some new members starting as well. So I guess my proposal would be that we have our other co-chair manage the February meeting, and then people can consider if they would like to run for election. The March meeting seems like the easiest rather than having a 1 month interim co-chair.
Gotcha.
That's okay with everyone?
I definitely support that this time around, but maybe if it's like more than 3 months of vacancy, we could appoint an interim, or we could select a threshold, and of course cross that bridge when we get there, since that's not the situation. Everyone in this room may never encounter that as a problem again, so.
Sure.
Are the officers' positions fixed?
As to what they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I have a copy of the bylaws here, that's what I was running to look at, as, just if anyone wants to review them.
We just wanted to know if there was opportunity to create new officer positions.
Like,
Outreach coordinator,
Social chair.
social chair, you know, roles that we need filled to meet modern day requirements.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes a 2/3 vote of the commission.
Oh, okay.
So it would take a couple of meetings to propose what the roles and responsibilities would be. And Joe's gonna sign this today, and I'm happy to circulate it as well. But I think if there is an intention to amend the bylaws, it's easier to do that all at once rather than in a couple of waves.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we can maybe take that up in new business and have a discussion about how to approach that.
Yeah.
I think would be good. Cool. So there was one more item that I wanted to do actually at the top of my report, and that was to provide an opportunity for introduction for Jessica Davis, who is the new IU ex officio seat. Jessica, I'll just note that whenever we've had new commissioners come on in the past, we've just provided an opportunity, or I provide an opportunity during the report from chairs for an introduction if you're interested, but there is no obligation.
Sure, I will take you up on the non-obligation. My name is Jessica. I am the interim university director of sustainability for all of IU. I've been director of sustainability at IUPUI for the past 9 years, and in August was pulled up to be university director. So I've been in the sustainability industry for a while, and I'm happy to be joining you all.
Excellent, thank you very much. We are very happy to have you as well. It's been a little while that we've been talking about the vacancy of that position, so it's great to have that, great to have you on board. All right, so that concludes the report from acting chair. Are there any questions on any of the items in that report? All right, thank you all for bearing with me through that. The next item on the agenda will then bring us to the report from our staff liaison, Lauren.
Sure. If you could pull up the agenda again for a second.
Absolutely. There it is.
Okay. So just a couple of items, and I have another piece of new business, but I won't get to that until later. But we have reinvigorated like a sustainability newsletter, and if you'd like to subscribe, you can. There's a subscribe button on the sustainability page. It's a good way to keep in touch with what's happening in terms of programs, and it would also be an opportunity if there's future like commission news that can be added to that as well. So there hasn't been one for a while, but we just sent one out recently on the 11th. So if you'd like your name to be added to that, happy to get you on that distribution list. And then the other sort of update, and this is also, the other two items are also covered in the newsletter, but we have issued an announcement for our grant program, which is expanded to small businesses now for solar and energy efficiency. You can find out more about the program and register for the information session, which will be on the 18th on the sustainability page. And we organize the page so it's easier for people to see what programs are for individuals versus businesses or nonprofits. But if you're involved with any small businesses or nonprofits that have indicated interest in solar, it's going to be $25,000 grant for solar and $10,000 for energy efficiency. So program's been running for 2 years, and we've been able to expand funding opportunities, and looking forward to working with everyone in that context. And then I think Michaela mentioned this last time, but ESD received a public service award last month for implementation of the climate action plan. So I think that's pretty much all from me at this point in the year, but as always, if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
The newsletter is just a listserv? Like it's just like subscribing to a listserv
Yeah, it's
for like a
MailChimp, so
monthly,
yeah,
okay.
it will be quarterly.
Quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there were updates that, you know, there was a commission event or something else, we'd be happy to add that as well.
Cool.
So we just sign up for that on the website.
Yeah, so if you just go to bloomington.in.gov/sustainability, scroll down a little bit, there's a green button. One says like us on Facebook and the other says subscribe to Sustainable Bloomington newsletter, so you just press that.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm trying to share that for you, but I have to end my current share to show the new share. I'm on the page. I thought this would be convenient and helpful, but it's been going very clumsily.
You're on the board page.
City sustainability page.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit further down. Right there. Oh, back up again.
Did I miss it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's like a big green
Okay.
button. Yeah.
There it is. Under like us on Facebook. Okay.
Yeah. And then the program I was mentioning is right there, so
Seal.
you can click on that as well. We'll be opening up applications on the 18th, so next week.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All righty. I will bring us back to the Zoom screen, and we can go on to report from Council ex officio if you are available, Matt.
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, everyone. So we had our short 3-week or so recess for the council over the holiday. Maybe not even that long, but I think maybe it was. I think it was again. So anyway, we're back in session tomorrow for the first time. It's what we call Council Organization Day. So we will vote on officer positions and make appointments to boards, commissions, and other types of things that council members serve on. And as I mentioned last meeting at BCOS, that will include an appointment to the Commission on Sustainability. I've spoken with who I think will be elected president tomorrow and expressed my interest in continuing to serve on this commission, but also an openness to give up that seat to another member if somebody else really would like to. So we will know that after tomorrow, and if I don't continue on the commission this year, it's been a pleasure, of course, serving with all of you for the last 2 years. Additionally, I wanted to mention, as I usually do, that I have my monthly constituent meeting on the third Monday of the month. That is next Monday, the 16th at 5:30 p.m. If you go to bloomington.in.gov/council, you can see Zoom details. So all residents are welcome to bring conflicts of interest, including sustainability topics. Another update from the Council's Climate Action and Resilience Committee. As you know, I think I've reported in the past, we had spent some time in the fall planning around one of the climate action plan items that would require or possibly require some legislation ultimately, which is the deregulation and intended phase out of off-road gas-powered equipment, and some of the more egregious offenders from a noise and local air pollution perspective are things like string trimmers and gas-powered blowers. So we had gotten some plans together. We're probably taking a break over the holiday, but it's my intent this week to loop back with committee members and staff to scope some dates and set some meeting times in this winter and or spring to bring in residents and other stakeholders like lawn care companies to talk about some of the issues involved with transitioning to electric equipment where feasible, both for city operations and also community-wide. So I will keep you all posted if meetings get scheduled in the interim before the next Commission on Sustainability meeting, because they might be of general interest to the Commission, and it might be something you're willing to help amplify with the folks in your network. Additionally, as was sort of mentioned already, and I'm happy to answer questions after I share some updates here, so I see Jessica's hand. Additionally, as I think I either Lauren or Joseph mentioned, that the council is in charge of about half the appointments to the commission, and we'll have some vacancies it sounds like the council will appoint. We do that typically by dividing work among interview committees. I'm not on the committee that interviews for this commission. That is, I think, Isabel Piedmont-Smith, Susan Sandberg, and Dave Rallo currently. And if that stays the same, they would be interviewing for appointments. So just a reminder that if your term is expiring and you intend to be appointed again in your council appointment, make sure the council office and the clerk's office are aware of that. And yeah, hopefully we can get those seats filled pretty quickly. It's a little bit more onerous of a process on the council side just because we have to find times to meet, get meetings noticed, make recommendations, conduct interviews, make recommendations to the full council and that sort of thing. So not quite as streamlined as the mayoral appointments. I think that's it for me. We don't have any major pending legislation, so there aren't any, real salient updates on that front from the council side. I guess last note, just to say welcome to Jessica Davis. It's great to have you on the commission. And also thank you, Joseph, for serving as chair. We'll miss you on the commission, but yeah, I hope to continue to see you participate and be involved.
Absolutely. Thanks for that update, Matt. Jessica, if your question is still pending, please go
Sure.
ahead.
And actually, it was maybe more of a comment, or first of all, Matt, good to see you. Related to electrification of like ground split and things like that, we're looking at, well, we've already done it at IUPUI, but we're looking at it at the Bloomington campus. We were planning to have a day to bring in a handful of vendors. So just wanted to put that out there as maybe a point of collaboration between the city and IU. If we could maybe align some dates or times, or if there's shared interest there, I just wanted you to be aware of that. We can work together on it.
Yeah, 100%. You were on my list to reach out to, Jessica, to talk about this specific with you. Because I'd like to get some of the major, governmental or institutional representatives involved. Obviously, IU, but also like Monroe County government, for instance, and the Monroe County Community School Corporation and things like that.
Yeah.
We're caretakers of land, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should touch base.
What
on that.
really cracked the code for us was that, at least on the IEPUI side, we were able to reach out to Greenworks, and they brought out a trailer of all of their equipment, and they let us put it through the ringer for 2 weeks. Like, use it. And that was really the major proof of concept to our staff, like the day-to-day users of it. So that's something that we're probably going to be looking at and replicating is more longer-term trials of these sorts of equipment. So just wanted that on your radar, because I could see it being useful to other folks besides us too. We'll have to negotiate with different vendors, but that would be my intention.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to more conversation around that. I think, our climate action plan calls for ideally coordination and sort of joint commitments to phasing out gas-powered equipment, again, from the local government units and IU. So yeah, we'll definitely be in touch about that, and glad you're already thinking about it.
All right, sounds good.
Excellent. Any other questions on the report? All right. Also, Jessica, I knew your appointment would be very helpful, but I'm amazed by seeing how quickly and how fruitful it has already been. So I'm glad to see that. All right, so that concludes our report from Council ex officio, and we can go on to reports from commissioners, focusing on the working groups, starting with Just Transition. If you want to cover that, Angela?
Yeah. Should I go, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we just met. Caitlin is a member of the working group now, and we just discussed some possible goals and areas that we're going to be researching based on the available data that we have of local problems and manifestations that we want to address in accordance with the Just Transition principles. So currently, 2 of the areas are looking into homeless mortality data tracking and fossil fuel non-proliferation and seeing what that might entail for our local area. So those are just 2 possible areas that we're looking at going forward on.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions? All right. We can go on to heat management. Sean, if you would like to.
Sure.
Since our last meeting, we were able to submit our application for Kappa Strategies. That's the organization that helps cities across the U.S. map their urban heat islands. So we should know by the end of February if we've been chosen for the 2023 cohort. We've had a couple of new people join our group. A staff member from the Bloomington Fire Department who is involved with their mobile integrated healthcare unit. A staff member from Bloomington Transit. Hannah Gregory with Canopy Bloomington. And I also have a friend who has a lot of experience developing community surveys. So she'll be helping us. And what we're working on right now is just going through all of the plans, city and county plans that have anything to do with heat management. So we want to make sure that we're not duplicating work that's already being done or stepping on anybody's toes. Is there anything else? I think that's about it.
All right, thank you for that. It's good to hear. And lastly, the waste reduction working group. Are either of you interested in providing an update? If not, I can.
Well, I can give an update. We started out the pilot program for the compost captains. We have 8 neighbors, or 8 households in the neighborhood signing up, and we're willing to take 2 more. And then we started, then we started, this is separate, we started bokashi, which is fermenting our food waste. And if you're not familiar, bokashi is a vastly better way than composting, B-O-K-A-S-H-I. It doesn't actually break the food down into soil, but it keeps a vast majority of the carbon, nitrogen, and everything else compared to composting. So it's actually, if composting on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 5 or a 6, bokashi is like a 9 or a 10. It's an even better option. So we're going to play around with that and have pits of bokashi sludge and other good stuff. And I will update later on that.
All right. I'll note that we didn't have our we normally meet prior to, or the week prior to the monthly meeting, but we didn't this week. So we didn't have any developments on the drafting of the compost captain's plan, but we'll be meeting in the next week or two to keep working on that. That's
Are
it.
they 8 households in one neighborhood, or is it just?
This is 8 households in the Covenanter neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, so we sent out an email and said, this is what we're
Okay.
accepting. We've got them buckets and we've got them instructions, and we're gonna start accepting.
A little pilot. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Any other questions?
Where did you discover bokashi?
We've known about it for a while. We just had a lot of other stuff on our plate, so we just started, we got the buckets 3 or 4 months ago, and now we're siphoning off the juice and adding that to 3 tablespoons per 1 gallon of water, and we're now feeding our plants with it, our indoor stuff, and yeah, you just keep a lot more of the nutrients in, and it doesn't obviously break down. Like if you bokashi 10 pounds, you're still gonna have 9 pounds of stuff after, but then you mix that into your soil, and it's much more nutritional. It's much better than composting. Yeah. Yes, I was like, I'm all about composting. Composting is great, but you lose a lot as it composts, whereas bokashi you keep a major amount of the nutrients.
You know, one thing, we're thinking about comparing bokashi and compost is, are you trying to get rid of waste, or are you trying to produce a product? And so
We're trying to build our soil. We have to build soil, so
Yeah.
we build a lot of our own. We grow a lot of our own soil as well.
Yeah, but in general, if you're looking at like
Correct.
leaf or something, it's more just like, where can we put it and not
Right.
put it in landfill? So
Right. So we're doing bokashi for the food waste.
Okay.
And all yard waste, we still compost because we have to build soil. So there's definitely a place for both.
Yeah, okay.
But for compost captains, if people want more of a product that they can use around their home, bokashi is probably going to be a better option. So it's just something that we could build with layers. Like we start your composting, and then once you're to level 3 or 4 with composting, then we can say, let's see if you can do bokashi as well. So it's just more layers to composting would be the idea, and just having people level up to the best possible outcome, and then something they can not only do at home, but then keep everything
Right.
there. So.
I don't know, well, just something to think about. I'm a co-director of the IU Campus Farm, which is currently kind of on hiatus as we, well.
We
anyway,
need somebody from IU, yep.
Yeah, old story, but, you know. We had started doing some work of like setting up different types of basically home composting. You know, you've got your black bucket, you've got your more intensive, you got your more kind of throw it all in there and let it go.
Right.
With the idea was doing basically a kind of demonstration / research, you know, okay, here's how you get the best product. It takes the most money, the most input, the most time. What's the balance? And having a place where people can go and say like, here's what I have available. Here's how I can handle it. What are my options? You know, I don't know if that's something to keep in the back of your mind is, you know, whether there might be an option to work that in, so you can say like, here's a kind of low input, no time, you know, dump it. I used to just have a big old thing, you know,
Right.
right in there. And then here's the ones you turn, the ones you aerate, and kind of some different systems. I'd love to see something like that around here. I've never seen that kind of an urban area, demonstrating different options and kind of making them more palatable. But it sounds like you're kind of doing that with the Bokashi, so there might be ways to
Yeah, the whole.
to fill in kind of the gaps between like most intensive and least intensive.
Right, and,
Yeah.
and that's the idea is to have all these options and say, oh, you can do this,
Yeah.
great. We want
Yep.
you to do something. We don't care what you do.
Yep.
We want you to do something, and so we want to offer those options. And for some folks, Bokashi is going to be that. Yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be a little bit more costly, but it's also dramatically faster than composting.
Yep.
Way faster to get to that finished product. We're talking Bokashi in a matter of weeks compared to months, if not a year, plus for large composting. So.
How do you know when it's ready? I'm just curious.
With Bokashi, you're talking 2 to 4 weeks. Yeah, so you have these buckets and you just keep layering it with the wheat germ essentially that's inoculated, and then once the bucket's full, you're good. You wait 2 weeks and you're good to go. Plus, it has a spigot which you can then siphon off the juices, and that is fantastic for plants. So, yeah.
Can I raise your compost captains to Bokashi bosses? But I really like this idea of like a scalable
Yeah.
way to opt in to a composting program, because that to me, I mean, it even speaks to stuff that we deal with in this. I'm newly introduced to the Just Transitions, which is there are sustainable options no matter where you're at.
Right.
So
Is there any kind of education program set up on this for outreach?
Not yet. That's part of what we're developing with
Yeah,
the
it's
pilot.
part of our
with-
plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're building in like trainings and different things like that. Educational tools that were available to everyone that was involved in the program and things like that.
And there's a group out of San Diego that is doing it. I mean, they're doing tons upon tons a year. I think they have 500 some odd families or households that are enrolled, and is a profit model. Ours would not be that, but they have trainings and they have different levels where you could just be at home, but then you can be a captain. You can accept others, so you actually have to, rise through these to get that. So that would kind of be the idea. Once you've proven you can compost and you can be a captain, now you can move to Bokashi and so on and so forth. So we want it to be a long-term where you continue to educate yourself and continue to grow.
So you can
and
take on
enroll
more
others.
people,
Yep.
more neighbors
Oh, I see.
around you.
Do people sell the Bokashi juice? I would imagine that would be.
They could.
It's online.
So I'm not aware of anybody selling the juice.
There's an indoor all seasons composter.
So that's all the stuff to make the Bokashi, and part of the byproduct is the juice. So
Yeah.
it's very stinky, but it is wonderful. Maybe I'll have my sister put it on the website, buy some stinky Bokashi juice and feed your plants.
Oh wait, liquid
But really, yeah,
Bokashi.
it all comes down to we just want to, I guess
Like
they do.
that?
Liquid Bokashi.
Discontinued.
Okay. so
Out of
maybe not.
stock.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions on the report?
I think it'd be great later in the year to get a progress report about how it's going.
Yeah, okay.
So that will conclude reports from commissioners, all the working groups. That will bring us on to discussions, not resolutions. The only item in which presently is a local composting landscape presentation, which I prepared following your question, John, at our last meeting about just sort of what the status of composting is. I had mentioned that it's a vast area and that it wouldn't really be feasible to cover all of it in a single meeting, but at least now wanted to provide the opportunity to dedicate some time to it, to just go over kind of an introduction and just a broad overview of what the landscape is and point out some of the most important resources, I would say, that provide a lot of the information and answers to a lot of questions in case anyone here was not already aware of them or would like to follow up with them. I didn't get the presentation completed in time to add it to the packet, but I will send it out following the meeting, and all of the information referenced in it is all hyperlinked, so you could use the presentation to go directly to any of the further information. So I will just share my screen to kick that off. And there it is. So I estimate this will take about 10 to 15 minutes. I'll probably start a stopwatch to make sure that it does. And just, there we go. Start with the quick overview. It's only going to be a few different sections. It's going to be sort of what's been done in the past that has the greatest foundation for describing the current status of I guess the waste stream, and in particular food waste and compostables, or organics in general, in the community. We'll touch then on the more updated, what's actually happening right now information, and then we'll go into the future, mostly with respect to city and waste management district goals around the topic, and then also just provide a short opportunity for discussion about BCOS's current involvement and future involvement in that realm. And then we can, I guess, field questions or make remarks after. The foundation, and probably the most information-rich thing that we have right now that is unfortunately a little bit old at this point, is that the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District commissioned a mixed waste processing feasibility study in 2016. So you can see on the image, it's dated January 2018. It took a year of data collection and then a year to, I think, compile the report. So the numbers are from 2016. The report was released in 2018. And it has a really wide and comprehensive assessment, including a waste composition study that really gives a good cross-section of what's happening with waste in this particular area. And I think the county was kind of the target, but it also focused on adjacent counties in the region. And I put on the right side, you can see there's sort of key elements to this particular document. The first part is section 2 is the regional waste system. Section 4 is the composition study, which is probably going to be the interesting part. And then section 5, I'll touch a little bit more on in the next slide, and it's in particular section 5.5 is about an organics composting facility, and then they also do a feasibility assessment of a variety of waste management options, and then provide a summary conclusions. So this was focused on the entire waste stream, and what came out of it that was the most impactful was the waste composition study. And what I have shown here is just for the city in the diagram, but they did the same study for the city's hauled waste, for the solid waste management district, for IU, and for private haulers. And so the part that really popped a lot of eyes is that, as you can see for the city, 47% of the waste stream is compostable, and about 25% of that is food waste. So,
Joe, people the video thing aside.
oh, I'm sorry. I have no idea if I can.
The little minimized
Yeah, I can
at the
control
top
it.
of the videos. So where
Let's see.
everyone's boxes are on
Right.
the right side.
Because on my display, I can control that. I have the
Oh.
same thing. Is that
Oh,
on
just-
your display? Oh, okay.
It's on your display.
Sorry, I couldn't see it on my display.
Yeah,
Thank you for pointing that out. I already moved mine out of the way. So you couldn't see some of the other things I was referring to. I'll just go see if I can go back one slide. Okay, so these were the key elements that were concealed previously. I read them, so it's not essential. But so I put the other 3 of the 4 groups that were audited, that had a waste audit, and you can see their compositions were all relatively similar, pretty close. So it turns out that we can say that roughly half of the waste stream is compostable and roughly a quarter of the entire waste stream is food waste, which is the same, pretty similar nationally as well. So that garnered enough attention that the district then requested a subsequent study, which is the organics waste recovery analysis. So the same organization, Kessler Consulting, did this next study specifically on organics. So again, some of the most important elements within it are that they did an organic waste generation and recovery estimates, an assessment of existing organic waste activities, and that's kind of the landscape of a snapshot in that particular time, where they did active facilities, hauling services, and gap analysis in terms of bringing those two things together and how to capture the uncaptured material. And then in sections 5 and 6 did the analysis on those options and then a summary and next steps. So a more or less direct answer to your question, but from about 6 years ago. And it's definitely changed since then.
Is there a reason to think it's changed significantly? Subtle.
COVID had a pretty big impact. There have been, I think, at least 3 acquisitions of hauling services, and we'll get to in just a moment the closure of one of the 2 principal, I guess we'll say 3, but 2 real facilities that was receiving waste. So I'll touch on that on I think the next slide. But for the present slide, this is just, I guess, a gross summary of the contents of the entire report if you want to just distill it to how much waste is being generated. And this is with the same breakdown that they did the composition studies on. So there's private haulers, there's the city, there's IU, and then there's the district. And so this, however, is on the organics side of just that part of the waste stream for all of these entities. So you can see it's around 120 tons total mixed waste, and then 45 tons of food waste and other compostables. Sorry, it's the subsequent slide. That concludes the sort of historical snapshot that was done by these 2 studies in 2016, released in 2018. So now if we jump to the present time, section 3, just starting on sort of the community standard and accessibility of composting. This is from the Bloomington UDO, which is it's the Unified Development Ordinance that defines all of the I guess, city regulations. And there's one specifically for compost, so I cited the exact location there, 20.03.30. And then under operational standards for non-commercial urban agriculture, you can have compost piles that do not exceed 6 feet in height and shall be enclosed at ground level to be rodent resistant. So it is permitted to do at-home composting in Bloomington. It's not true of many places in the U.S. So it's, I guess, a luxury. We can actually do a lot of it here. And the allowed use table on the bottom shows all of the zoning types, and P-star is the permitted use with use condition or use specific standards. So it's permitted with specific standards in every single zoning type except for PO non-residential. I apologize, I don't remember exactly which one that is, but by and large, all residential zoning permits composting. So now on the more large scale of collecting the actual tonnages that were presented from the Kessler report, this is an up-to-date list of registered composting facilities in Monroe County with a quick summary of each of them on the bottom. So IDEM only records that they're registered. What I added to the bottom was my knowledge of each of these sites presently. So Green Earth is the one that is the most important change since the Kessler report. They are no longer processing any waste of any kind. And they were only one of 3 facilities that were actually receiving public organic material. And the other 2 being Earthkeepers, registered as Fable Farms, which does only food waste collection. And then the third being Good Earth, LLC, which does only yard waste, so no food waste. The other...
Green Earth, in terms of, I don't know if you have volumes associated with that, but they were big scale
yes,
stuff,
yes.
and I don't know if anybody else here is.
It was a substantial facility, and yeah, it had a significant impact. Its closure had a significant impact on organics collection, particularly for non-food waste, because there's an even greater volume of that, I believe.
So is there currently any processing at scale of yard waste in Bloomington? Like leaves and...
So I will say that I know Good Earth does operate a significant volume and receives yard waste.
If you're listing IU, I will just say that you could add the city as well, because we do mulch and composting, but it's for our own operations rather than available to the public.
Okay, that I guess it does not appear on IDEM's registered composting facilities list is the only reason I didn't include it.
Okay.
So I guess the city does that, but not in a way that's registered with IDEM then?
Yeah, I mean, we have mulch and composting sites. We manage thousands of acres of land, so.
Okay,
It's part of
interesting.
operations.
Okay, thank you for that addition. So, yeah, I did list Indiana University because it's registered with IDEM. Jessica, you can interject if you have any more information about this, but the information that I found was that it was, I think on IU's website in a FAQ, that it's only for grounds landscaping use, and that there used to be food waste processing or food waste diversion through the dining halls, but that was through Green Earth, which has since closed, and that operation at IU has since been suspended as well.
That's correct on both accounts. We are in the process of, we basically have to start from the ground up for food waste composting. That's going to take a while, so.
Got it. Thank you. I think the most important part to clarify was that even though IU has this registered site, it is not currently used for the food waste from the dining halls.
And it's just for the grounds landscaping, it's not any additional waste, it's just what we pull off of the campus.
Correct. So that's the status of the large-scale processing. So one thing I did want to focus on was just since since a lot of the focus is on food waste diversion, that Earthkeepers presently is the only service provided for that. And I know this has come up a handful of times in different contexts in previous meetings, so I just wanted to quick add a couple of points about their services in that they do have 3 different kinds. It's curbside pickup, so it's a normal conventional collection route, just like trash and recycling services are. There's also a drop-off network that we've talked about a little bit before, where there are publicly accessible locations, and users can just access it on their own time without having to have this collection service at a specific time. And then there's also commercial hauling services, so that's a little bit more on the institutional scale. So again, bigger than just at-home service.
And events.
Yes, that's true. They do provide events as well, which I just kind of lumped into the commercial. It's a commercial/events service.
Do you know anything about their compost production infrastructure or techniques or anything?
A little bit, and that reminds me, I forgot to note, I wanted to disclose at the beginning of this, I do actually work with Earthkeepers. I know I've also mentioned that in a previous meeting, but that also seems pertinent for this meeting to just make sure everyone's aware. And so is there, I guess, in a general way, is there something in particular that you're interested in?
Oh, there's just there's a lot of techniques for food waste. They're hard, basically. So I'm just curious what they do.
I see. Yeah, that I don't have any information on, or at least that I think would be relevant to the presentation, other than
If you're curious about diversion, they haven't updated the 2022 totals, but it just by year throughout their.
I'm more curious on the technical side.
Yeah.
What they do when they get it.
Yeah.
I've looked into such things for IU and it's complicated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know there is, I think, additional IDEM permitting required for that as well.
Yeah, significant, yeah.
So again, just like I said, there's a link at the bottom of each of these pages that reference any documents or services, so you can find out more on the website as well. And I think, yeah, so that really represents the bulk of present activity as of now. So for thinking about sort of future involvement in composting and organics diversion, first thing that comes to mind, I think is the most pertinent for us, is the Climate Action Plan. So from the city of Bloomington, there's an entire waste management section. There are 2 specific goals devoted to it, both listed here, increasing the solid waste diversion by 30% of 2018 values. And then the second is to educate, motivate, and empower the public to achieve waste reduction and diversion. The whole Climate Action Plan link is available at the bottom of the page. And then I just added a little bit more specific information about those 2 goals here, because under each goal in the Climate Action Plan, there are also specific action items associated with that goal. So it is pretty granular in this particular case. So under the first goal, these are all of the sections. These 4 sections are related to organics diversion. Clearly the first one, increasing it by 40% of 2018 values. I should also add this is a 10-year plan. I didn't mention that, or I did show that on the previous slide, but the Climate Action Plan has a 10-year window and was approved 2021, early 2021. So we're in the early period of this, and these are the objectives for that 10-year window. So the first is organics diversion. The second is potential recoverables, which could include edible food waste. So I mean, it could cover any spectrum of usable items, but food is not excluded from that. Waste reduction, same thing. And then expanding recycling and organics options for multifamily residents was another target strategy for the landfill diversion. So the second goal is just, I think, a single strategy, and that is mostly public awareness campaigns. One big item of which that I wanted to also highlight that the city partnered with the Earth Keepers for was the Compost Up Downtown program. There are links to both the city and Earth Keepers pages with respect to that, but it was essentially a restaurant onboarding pilot program where the city provided funding for Earth Keepers service to be able to demonstrate this, the Earth Keepers to be able to demonstrate the service to local restaurants.
We paid for 3 months of service.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where the service was paid for so that restaurants could try it without having to have the initial hurdle of making a financial commitment to an unfamiliar service. So that is actually just, it's happened over this last year and is finishing out it was in a staged process. So it's in the process of finishing out the last of the sets of onboarded restaurants, and then reports and summaries and presentations will follow.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Go back at
Absolutely.
the numbers, so that, increase from 20,000 to 33. Does that come out of that report? Like, have they identified 14,000 tons that can be
Yeah,
additions?
so it was
right?
based on the Kessler report.
Yeah,
That was the
but-
most recent data that I
Right.
completed.
What was it like? Was it food waste? Was it paper
Predominantly
products?
food
Was
waste,
it?
yeah. So specific to the organics diversion, from the potential recoverables, that was based on the pie chart that
Mhm.
shows. like,
Right. I'm just trying
average
to
household,
do
yeah.
that math in my head.
Yeah.
There is more information about each of those goals in the full Climate Action Plan as well.
But if you want to dive into like the methodology for the estimation, that was in the mixed use feasibility
Yeah.
study that you mentioned.
Okay.
I can send that out later.
Yep. Other questions so far? Okay. So that covers the city's goals, and then there's also the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. For those who are not familiar, it is a state-defined entity that is neither the city nor the county, and is run by a board of directors that are appointed from both bodies. So it is focused primarily on just providing minimum essential waste services, including like hazardous materials processing. And they also operate, I think, 5 recycling centers around the whole sort of central Monroe County area, so around basically the outskirts of the city limit. And they also, with the Citizens Advisory Committee, which I also participate on, recently adopted, or at the end of 2021, adopted a 5-year solid waste management plan that also contains similar goals and objectives, particularly surrounding organics. So also including education, source reduction, and waste diversion, particularly expanding the compost end user market, which, as you were mentioning, with large volume of material that's created in the composting process, it needs to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear in the way that you bury things in a landfill. It's also a valuable product. So part of the goal is to be able to have that circular end of the process where what's being diverted is actually going back somewhere useful. One other item that's relatively new and developing and potentially, has the potential to have a significant impact is that the City of Bloomington Utilities is currently going through a resource recovery feasibility study for an anaerobic biodigester at the Dillman Road wastewater treatment plant. So that is underway. Preliminary results were reported a couple of months ago, and they should be nearing the actual full report. This month is when it's scheduled. So
Where is that report gonna go?
that's a good question.
There will probably be an update to council, but I think a lot of, there's been some initial reporting, and I can send a link to that if that's helpful for everyone. But basically, I mean, a lot of it is related to cost recovery and having enough input in order to make it viable.
Are we at the point with these climate action plans and various goals of saying like, okay, now here's the budget to achieve that goal, or is that still kind of somewhere in the future?
There's not a cost study that's been done for full implementation. There was not an expectation that it would be entirely publicly funded. However, in the past year and starting in January, there's actually a dedicated funding source for implementation through the Economic Development Local Income Tax. So that budget for this year will help advance some of the goals, but other ones are going to be dependent on partnerships, which I think is pretty consistent with other plans.
Yeah, I just, like 40% by, in 10 years. It's like, all right, let's get going. It's like.
I mean, I think in some of the areas where, like, for instance, utilities, we manage our own utility, that's a little bit easier to cost out versus waste, which is a pretty fragmented space.
And one thing with the waste reduction that we looked into, for example, support waste reduction through policy and operational refinements, all the cartons, we looked into recycling all those cartons, and the majority are from school systems with kids drinking milk.
Sure.
And we just found out that the company that the city has the contract with doesn't recycle them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do we get over that? And that's that's low hanging fruit.
Wow.
We just need something that's going to actually recycle them instead of
Right.
sending them, keeping them in our garage, or sending them out ourselves individually.
Well, and having lost green earth, like that
It's
organics got a lot harder.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be hard just to keep where we're at, never mind increase.
Yeah, so to Matt's remark, I mean, that kind of wraps up those potential big picture impacts on organics and sort of the goals, the plans, the efforts. But then the BCOS activities, like you mentioned, one of them, so a neighborhood composting program, again, in line with the climate action plan goals, and then also partnering with the solid waste management district to promote their drop-off collection. So the district is partnered with Earth Keepers, I should specify. So all of the recycling centers have organics drop-offs at them, but it's Earth Keepers who operates that. It's just in partnership with the district. And then the other network is in partnership with the city, and those are at 2 parks and the Blooming Foods locations. So again, Earth Keepers is operating these things, but in partnership. So what we did in the Waste Reduction Working Group was one of the city's climate action plans to collaborate with the district about promoting their end of the partnership as well, to try to promote more participation at the recycling center collection sites.
Because we saw from the statistics that the majority of the organic food waste is coming from the private haulers, which is not going to be in the city limits. So that's where there is a large opportunity.
So I just threw out in this is the last slide about the BCO's role, just sort of some things that we could be doing in 2023. Reviewing climate action plan goals, making sure we're aligning with those. We could focus on spreading the Zero in Bloomington efforts, and then just the waste reduction working group will be continuing to set goals primarily around the composting program from what we discussed, but also, that will be an avenue for BCOS to continue to engage in organics collection and diversion. That is all that I think is fair to go over in a sort of quick way, with trying to provide as much detail as is possible without it being an entire meeting. So opportunities for questions or thoughts.
Would you be able to send these out, and then also with the organics report that you've referenced to everyone after this meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so those reports are actually also linked right in this show or this presentation. So at the bottom of the page, there's the mixed waste processing, there's the organics recovery, there's the Bloomington UDO, there's Earthkeeper's site, and then there's the climate action plan and the compost up and the solid waste management plan as well. So I can strip those links out if you want them just directly in an email too, but they're all right in the presentation if you want to jump to them. Other questions or comments, thoughts?
You rock.
Please.
Please don't go. Please don't go.
I won't be far.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for going along with that presentation. And that does conclude the only item under discussions, not resolutions. We do have one new business item.
That's
if we're
fine.
ready to proceed.
But if anyone else has other items, we can cover those before.
Any other discussions, not resolutions? Before new business?
Well, I guess this is as good a place as any. What Joe was mentioning earlier about our executive meeting, I just wanted to give a little context as to what we were discussing, so that we think that we could, to generate strength in numbers, we should be doing some outreach to try and get more awareness out to people, and also the fact that we meet basically once a month here. We get a lot of business done here, but there's not a lot of idea exchange or room for it between individuals. I really only see you guys here, but we all could have a lot to discuss. I think a social event would help with that. We were just, that meeting alone, between the four of us, we were generating a ton of ideas that we all want to act on. It may also provide opportunities for fundraising, generating something to help support our projects, also getting a volunteer pool that, if we could find out how to make this feasible with the city, so that regular volunteers that are putting in the time and effort can join the commission, basically just setting up a framework for growth. And finding people that are really committed to performing. So as we discuss this later on, I guess, to work out the details of these kind of social engagements, I would welcome any input or suggestions that you guys might have, both for reaching out to volunteers, potential funding sources, and each other. Just let us know. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. I'll add, yeah, I do think that's a good idea. I think that would really help have like instead of cold applications to those who are maybe less familiar with the commission, having those who have already been participating, like be able to have a seat on the commission after having participated. I mean, that'd be great for the sort of integration process. They'd be ready to go and already familiar with the activities. We had talked about the Indiana open door law requirements for meeting announcements if you have more than quorum, but there is, I guess, an exemption for gatherings in which no final business is going to be discussed. So that permits just like a completely informal gathering of more than half of membership, provided that we're not actually doing business. So I think that would be nice too.
Yeah, we could just get all the ideas and creativity out in the social environment, and then come down here and lock it into Word.
Right. Yeah, so
It could be even cool to integrate maybe some of the education efforts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, maybe we could all take a class together or something.
That's a good idea.
we talked about also opening it up to the public, just having like a commission open house sort of thing, like meet the commissioners, and then people could also spontaneously just show up even without necessarily applying to be on the commission, but to be like, oh, I don't know what the commission is, I'm interested in learning.
Sure.
So I think there are a lot of dimensions in which that could be successful. I don't know what frequency would be reasonable. I know we also have difficulty with time constraints. So the idea of having equal social engagements to meeting engagements may be a lot, but of course the social end would be voluntary. So it would be sort of a come as you're able to setting.
I think a social event after elections could be really beneficial.
Okay.
If we're talking about timeline.
We're willing to host it.
Cool.
We're thinking maybe at like a bar, like
Yeah, like
general
a public
public.
place.
That's no,
Oh, so
seriously.
general public should show
Yeah,
up,
like just like a monthly thing where we can have a place that we can all gather that like we all know is gonna happen. And if you're available, then you can come, and if not, it's just us to have time to interact in a less formal setting. Where it's not like a one-time thing. It'll just be like a regular thing that grab a beer or not, a water.
I was just suggesting our place for the first one because we have all the different composting, so people. can
Well,
kinda
that could be an
see.
educational event, yeah. But just for a regular informal, that's more like what we're thinking. Just so you guys know what we were talking
Sounds
about.
like a great thing to put in a newsletter.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be perfect. You said they're quarterly?
Yeah, but if there was an announcement, we'd
Oh, okay.
be able to send them out more frequently. It's just that it's better if there's more things involved.
Sure. Makes sense.
Just to get people's general opinion, would you guys be open to doing something like after these meetings, like right after this, we go to like Upland Brewery or something, and just if you're available, we hang out that way, or would you want it to be on a separate day, a weekend? What are people's general feelings? Since I will probably be the one planning this, I'd like to get a general census.
My general feeling is after the meeting makes a lot of sense. I think a cadence of monthly is too frequent for me personally.
Do what?
The cadence of monthly is just a little bit too frequent because the working group meetings, there's just some other things, and I want to be able to like capitalize on the social, experience. Versus if it's monthly, it can kind of, I guess, after a couple months, it might feel like a little more arduous.
Social.
Exactly.
It's the same three people at the bar.
So maybe something like quarterly, or again, like I was thinking after elections, I kind of came midterm, so I was like, that's the president, that's all I need to know, so I feel like it could be a good introduction, especially when you guys mentioned onboarding, materials. My onboarding was a little bit clunky, not to anyone's fault. I think it was just like a combination. Yeah.
It wasn't just.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm willing to help with any of it, but
Yep.
that's just my initial opinion.
That might be, that's a great idea, especially if we were gonna do one for just like commissioners, if we're not doing business, but we're interacting with each other. And then we could have another open one for public to come join so that we can, this isn't a great setting for people interested to come experience it, or talk to us. So, maybe a monthly one for general public outreach, and new members.
What might that look like? Just
Go to like a restaurant that allows all ages. We can announce it in the newsletter as meet the public events or meet the board commission events. That way that the people that come and sit here actually get to engage a little bit more, get to know us, shoot their ideas out, and then maybe coordinate something that they can come in later during one of the official meetings to present their idea.
It
But
would be nice to invite like members of the environmental commission as well, or
Yeah.
Monroe County Environmental Commission.
yeah, we did talk about inter-commission socializing.
Yeah.
Wasn't there some, I think it's from Matt last time, about potentially this commission, that commission might join up? What, I don't know that commission at all, like, I don't know is there some boundaries, like, that's our topic, like, don't touch it?
In a word, I'll just say that there's discussion of board and commission reform citywide. So one of those items included reducing the total number of boards and commissions. I think there are 52 or something of that nature. So that was one of the considered proposals for reducing number of commissions. I don't know that it's been followed through on, but we so far have been operating in isolation from each other. I only met with the chair a couple months ago for the first time spontaneously following the actual board and commission's annual event. So that would be a good opportunity for, I guess, what we might call cross-pollination, or at least getting to learn more about what their operations are and if we can collaborate.
And any volunteers on, like, the working groups? Yeah, your working group committee?
Yeah, we're going to need a lot of volunteers if we're going to map our urban heat island. It'll be a one-day event. We'll need volunteers throughout the whole day, so,
There'll be another
yeah.
reason to have a social to meet them and have,
That's a great
you
idea.
know, really meet the
I have
teams.
student interest groups who would come as well,
Exactly.
just something like that. But back to meeting just us, another pro, if we can just all meet just us together, we can create some ties amongst us before we kind of open it up to those broader networking connections.
That's a good idea. That's
So,
a good place to start.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the, again, as a soon-to-be member of the public, I do agree with the general quarterly.
Take me off the invite list.
No, I just
Showing up for Upland, waiting for us to finish the meeting.
just want to be cautious about the planning suggestions I make for plans I might not directly be a part of in the same capacity. But my stance is similar, that I think a monthly social, in addition to monthly regular meetings and monthly working group meetings, would be a lot of time that I imagine not everybody would be able to make all of, and that the social would probably be the one that gets cut. I think quarterly would maintain that maybe higher quality value since it's less frequent, and having, some.
For the intercommit, or for the commissioners?
That's kind of what I'm thinking of, having, I don't know quite how to dice it, but having some of them be designated just commissioners, some of them open to the public, was something I hadn't thought about, but I think is a really good idea. Because that way we can focus on having more direct time, and the time being devoted just to commissioner conversation rather than bringing a bunch of people into it. I think both have a lot of value, and that, I don't know if semi-annual of each, so doing them quarterly where they alternate just commission, just public, would be a good model, or if that's too sparse, but that's something that comes to mind. At least maintaining recurring both types of meetings that aren't necessarily on a monthly basis, maybe bi-monthly, and they alternate between the two. That might be a good middle of the road. Alternate between just commission and commission with public. So that would be on a,
Could be like an even month. It's just commissioners, odd months are commissioners plus volunteers. And
that would still be monthly then.
monthly.
I was thinking even if we were to do every other month, then it would be like trimesters, like thirds of a year, where it'd be month commissioners, month off.
Formalizing it
Yeah,
informal.
We could just lay this out in calendars.
Well, yeah.
You know, and then talk about it next meeting.
I also think it's fine to just designate the first social for us.
Yeah.
And then now we're all established, and then everyone, for the rest of the calendar year
I see.
could be public, open to the public.
see.
Because, some may be more well attended by the public than others, so
true.
there may be some where it's really just us.
Happens naturally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get one down before you think about.
Yeah, you can still get to know our commissioners, like.
With the public
With
there.
the public
Yeah.
there, like I'm thinking like my boyfriend who majored in sustainability in undergrad would be there, but I can still talk to other people,
Yeah.
things like that, at a bar,
Yeah.
where it's open and informal.
That's another important
That's all
note
I'm
is
saying.
our friends that we could bring and significant others where they may be able to have an impact on other people's projects. So
Yeah.
it's another pool of resources.
Yeah.
So maybe next month, we could plant the first
On Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Well, maybe March then, following, because the annual elections will be in March. That's hopefully when we'll also have our new appointments.
I mean, you guys
Okay,
can
so
move the meeting
March.
from Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
After the
prime-
meeting?
in
People will
business.
probably celebrate Valentine's Day the weekend before.
If you have,
That's what I'll probably
you have
do.
15 minutes to move the meeting from Valentine's Day to Valentine's.
Oh, I don't care at all about Valentine's Day.
Yeah, someone else doesn't care about
We could do a
that.
soft, we could do a soft gathering on next month to say goodbye to you.
Okay.
He's like, I'll take it. But, you won't be included in well, you could come, obviously, you could. I'm not gonna say you're not invited, but by March, you won't be serving us
Right.
anymore, so,
Okay, so it sounds like casual gathering after the meeting.
next
and
week.
subsequent gatherings planned after that.
So Valentine's Day social gathering? Is that what we're saying?
But how about this? We just introduced the idea. Why don't we put it down on the calendar, see what it looks like, and then we can
You
kind
guys,
of
I
pick
mean, you
them.
can talk via email too. This is like very social meeting to
That's
your
true.
point.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be publicly
Yeah.
noticed. Right.
Yeah.
I'll have plans on
Anybody
Valentine's
second
Day
that to
for
keep it
Facebook.
informal? A motion to.
No one said we should make t-shirts, so when we all show up, we all know.
The commission and
Commissioner.
Funding source first. It'll be paper name tags until he makes money.
It's a good place to start. Okay. Other thoughts on that topic?
Can we run since it's an informal event, can we run a very informal vote for just the February social versus a March social, pre-election social versus post? Or we all just wanna try for a Valentine's Day thing?
I think we just say, if you want to come, you're welcome to come.
Starting next month.
Sure. I that's really what's the point, was it to be like very informal, like you're welcome to come. It's not meant to be a you need to come RSVP type of thing.
It's non-obligatory.
Yeah. So I don't really want to put a vote when we can just say you're welcome to join at this place, and if you have other plans, then don't come. Then don't tell me if you're coming or not. It's fine.
Okay.
Just maybe for a kickoff meeting, it might be nice to know if everyone's planning on coming.
I think
But
you can go somewhere where you don't need a reservation. You can go to Switzerland. You can go somewhere
Yeah,
else.
it'll be all right.
And it
I
doesn't have
think
to
you
be
can
right
figure it
after
out.
the meeting. I mean, it'd be a different day. Only because some people might not show up on Valentine's Day.
Maybe we skip the Valentine's Day. We'll have our first one after elections.
I think it's
Yes.
great.
That's
Then we
good.
can
We will
debrief
do
from
that.
elections and
Right.
for
Yes.
anyone who's newly appointed can kind of get acquainted.
Yeah.
Have a little happy hour.
Perfect.
Okay.
What date is the March meeting? I know it's informal, but I do have to put it on my
Put it on the
calendar.
calendar. I'll let you know. I'll let
14th.
you know when it's happening, but you don't need
14th
to
of
let
March.
me know.
So
if
because
you-
it's always the second Tuesday of the month.
Yes. Thank you.
Seen a couple
Yep.
of grants. Isn't that 12? Oh, I missed 2024.
Living in the future.
Okay.
Have you guys looked into any grants to scale up?
Any other thoughts on that topic?
Good idea.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you all. Okay. Any other items of new business? I'm going to interject you guys if I may.
Sorry.
Any other items of new business before we move on? I'm sorry, discussions, not resolution, before we move on to new business.
I'll talk with Dave.
So, okay.
Informal.
Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to our agenda item number 11, which is new business, Bloomington Commission on Sustainability 2023 Community Grant Program. I believe, Lauren, you're fielding that one?
Yeah. So, in the past, BCOS hasn't had any grants that you're considering. Some other commissions do, Bloomington Arts Commission, Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association, and so with a portion of funds through ESD, I wanted to propose, and this is sort of a very brief and general proposal with more specifics later, that there be a program to help support collective impact in some of the areas that you all have been working on in the working groups, and more broadly with the idea that this commission collects and review applications on at least a once-a-year basis. So I linked a couple of examples of programs in the agenda that are run by different commissions in different parts of the country. They're all slightly designed differently, but the idea being that you have a lot of great ideas, there's a lot of ways to potentially interact with the community, especially with things like neighborhood groups or other sort of like more informal organizations to help advance the climate action plan. So to Joe's point at the end of his presentation, it would just be another avenue in which to increase engagement in what the commission is doing on an annual basis. That's pretty much as far as it's gotten right now, because we just got our new budgeted funds last week. So There's not a final determination about what would be funded, but in between this meeting and the next meeting, I just wanted to encourage anyone to check out those 3 programs, and then also think about follow up with a ongoing either working group or a collection of people that would be interested in helping scope this out in the upcoming probably 4 months before it would launch.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions? Or discussion? If I may, just to clarify, so
Sure.
would those funds be going to like working group activities, or are those funds that we would be reviewing for distributing for other community activities?
Other community activities.
Okay.
Yeah, but it could support a working group purpose. The idea would be that it would broaden the engagement. So if you have like a social club or a community organization or another group that's has a project in mind that helps support the cap, that you could evaluate those proposals and fund them over time. Instead of having your activities only be driven by this small group of people, it helps improve collective impact. So some of those things could be like, right now we have teams on Zero in Bloomington, could help potentially support that. And there's different categories, I think, if you look at the grant examples, but I think at the most basic, it would be that the commission is able to evaluate the proposals against criteria and decide which ones get funded in a year. It would provide also, I mean, metrics towards the annual report, in terms of, you know, additional progress towards the climate action plan that the commission supported. And since the climate action plan appointed this group is helping advance that plan, it provides a funding mechanism to make that more feasible.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The maybe closest example that is existing within the organization of a small grant program like this would be Housing and Neighborhood Development as a small and simple grant program, which you can also look at as an example of ways that things like invasive removal projects have been funded in the past.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm familiar with that one. That was
So would the commission be responsible for identifying what's appropriate to use this funding for? Because I know, even in my short time here on the commission, we've talked a lot about how broad sustainability is.
Yeah.
So,
I think, I mean, a basic tenet would need to have to be a priority in the climate action plan. So there needs to be an associated goal with it. I think there's like broad
part of the
categories.
application process is like identify
Yeah.
what criteria within the climate action.
Yeah,
plan
so
this
that would be an
supports.
example of an application
Okay.
question.
Alright, I'm
Yeah.
on board.
Yeah. But, I mean, some examples of things that you've given today, like compost captains or something, if you had a neighborhood that wanted to participate and needed additional funding for supplies, that could be an example of an application of a potential program.
good. Other questions or thoughts?
Sorry, one more.
Mhm.
Does the existing grant program, do grant winners, have to provide any sort of proof that they applied the funds in the specific way?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
in most situations, and you can see some of the programs, you either need a fiscal sponsor, you need a project budget, and that just creates enforceability to make sure that the work gets done. Usually there's a pretty short report about impact so that you can report back to the commission and say like what happened as a result of the funds.
Excellent. Others?
Yeah, so I would say in the interim, if you could just check those out, and we'll be in touch again with more information, but wanted to put that out there at this meeting since it's the beginning of the year.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
All right, that was our only item of new business. We do have only 4 minutes left in our scheduled meeting time. Are there any other new business items that commissioners wanted to bring up? All right. That is the last item before adjournment. I do want to take the opportunity to say it has been wonderful serving with you all. I am very excited with where we have gotten over the last year in particular. I think we're in a very good position and moving in a very good direction, and I look forward to seeing how it continues. So thank you all for all your time and your efforts. Just a reminder that our next meeting will be February 14th, I believe here at 6 p.m. And if there is no objection, this meeting will adjourn.
Can we give him a round for his execution?